every concert that you do pretty much has a story. And I'm wondering what started this Appalachian journey that we're experiencing.
Well, the mission of Apollo's Fire, no matter what kind of music we're playing, has always been to really communicate the story and the emotions of the music to the audience. So we enjoy applying that to crossover folk music as well as to Bach and Vivaldi. This particular program is something I've been dreaming up for about 2 years, actually, and the idea of doing traditional American music, shape note singing, and Appalachian ballads on the period instruments from the early 19th century was something that I thought could be really special because hardly anyone has done that. So the story that sort of came into my head is that we're a troupe of musicians taking a covered wagon journey in the early 19th century. And we're starting out in New England. The program opens with a New England barn dance. And the covered wagon takes us down through Appalachia and passing through various ballads and stories and coming out finally in the South where we go to a revival meeting and perform many of the folk hymns that you hear in a revival meeting. And then finally the program ends at the river with the famous song Down to the River to Pray, which Alison Krauss sang in the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
You're experimenting with a style slightly different than classical music and Baroque music that we've heard. We've heard you perform Mozart and Bach, and but here these songs don't have composers. A lot of times they come down to us through traditions.
Right.
Maybe Tina, you can add on to this. Is there a different approach when you have music that's written on the page and has a name attached to it, compared to music that has been handed down from generations and has a more, a different, what is that approach? What is different about that approach?
Well, I certainly can't speak for the classical side of it, but as far as folk music goes, it really depends on the region. A tune can be different in different parts of the United States simply because, for example, the flatland players, the fiddlers there might have a different way of playing a certain tune than someone from Kentucky or someone from West Virginia. So stylistically, there are differences. I think the biggest difference is that Jeanette and I were having a conversation the other day that surprisingly to Jeanette, a lot of these fiddle tunes aren't put down on paper. That when you want to learn a tune, you don't go find a copy of it somewhere with sheet music. You find the source. You find a really old person who's been playing it in some holler somewhere, and you go there and you record that person. Or if you're not fortunate enough to be able to do that, which is the plight of most of us, there are people who have done that, and you can seek out those authentic expressions of that piece. And you can find different people. In fact, Ways of the World, when Jeanette and I were looking for a specific version of that, Jeanette found a version from Kentucky that was a 2-part tune. The one that I knew and loved was a 3-part tune, also from Kentucky. And it turns out these men spent their entire lives on opposite sides of the mountain, played this song, supposedly the same song. It has elements of similarity, but is fundamentally very different. But they never met. They never had an opportunity to play. So I think that is indicative of the folk tradition. And it gets passed along from one person to the next, and people change it in subtle but significant ways sometimes. And I think that is very different from having something on paper and the permanence of paper and the markings of the composer. And I think that's part of the beauty of this type of music.
It's like that game of telephone you play when you're a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.